In screwed news, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie might be very popular right now, but he sure is not a friend of working people in the Garden State. This week, Christie vetoed a bill passed out of the state's Senate that would have increased that state's minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $8.50 an hour. Currently, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour and has been at that rate since 2009. But if it had kept up with inflation starting in 1968, the minimum wage right now would be over $10.50 an hour. Let me repeat that. If the minimum wage today were to have the same purchasing power it had in 1968, then it would be well over $10 an hour instead of the $7.25 an hour it currently is. And all the state of New Jersey's Senate wanted to do is modestly raise that state's minimum wage to $8.50 an hour, still well below the $10 plus where it needs to be for minimum wage workers to get by. But Governor Christie vetoed it, arguing that paying working people in his state more money will hurt the economic recovery in New Jersey, where the unemployment rate is 9.6%, well above the national unemployment rate. But Governor Christie is still hypnotized by trickle-down economics, by the sort of economics that says if you give a bunch of rich people tax cuts, then all that extra money they keep will eventually trickle down onto the rest of us. And it'll do more than just create a nation of peons. After 30 years of trickle-down economics, we know what really happens. Trickle-down economics just makes us a nation of peons working for a minimum wage that's lost half its value since the 1960s. If Christie and the rest of the conservative movement would step out of the bubble, then they'd see that giving more money to working people actually does help the economy. The New Jersey Policy Perspective analyzed the economic impact in New Jersey of raising the minimum wage and found it would lead to an economic boom. It would mean $439 million more in the hands of working people in that state. That would increase economic activity by $278 million in the first year, and an equivalent of 2,420 new full-time jobs would be created. All this from raising the minimum wage for working people across the state, a move that Governor Chris Christie just vetoed. You know, all around the country, we're watching the breakdown of this free market, laissez-faire capitalist model that we've been told for 30 years is going to produce great, high-paying jobs for everyone. Reaganomics hasn't worked. Reaganomics has failed. And now that it's failed, now that high-paying jobs are being outsourced and low-paying jobs just don't cut it for most Americans, isn't it time to consider government solutions to ensure that everyone has a right to a job and a right to a living wage? I think so. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt thought so too. That's why in his 1944 State of the Union address, Roosevelt introduced what he called a second Bill of Rights. It was an economic Bill of Rights that would guarantee every American a right to employment, a right to a living wage, a right to housing, health care, education, retirement, and the right to compete in a marketplace free from monopoly. Here he was back in 1944 laying it all out.
A second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed. Among these are the right to a useful and remunerative job in the industries or shops or farms or mines throughout the nation, the right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation, the right of every farmer to raise and sell his products at a return which will give him and his family a decent living, the right of every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom, freedom from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home or abroad, the right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the right to adequate protection from the economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, the right to a good education. All of these rights spell security.
Unfortunately, FDR died before he could really fight for this second Bill of Rights. But today, as working people struggle like they've never struggled before since the time of FDR, since the Great Depression, we should be taking a second look at FDR's second Bill of Rights. In particular, the right to a living wage.
right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation.
With his veto this week, we learned that Governor Chris Christie disagrees with FDR. He disagrees that working Americans living in the wealthiest nation on the planet should have a right to a job and a wage at that job that affords them to live at least a reasonable life. So why is that? Why is it that 400 billionaires in America have the right to own more wealth than 150 million other Americans combined, yet working people in New Jersey don't have a right to a small increase in their minimum wage? Let's ask my next guest. Neal Asbury joins me now. He's an entrepreneur and host of the Truth for America radio show and author of the book Conscientious Equity. Neal, welcome back.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So what do you think was going through Chris Christie's mind when he vetoed, $1.50 for people who were still making less than they would have made in 1968 at minimum wage jobs?
Well, first, I think FDR would also support a right to work and be free from oppressive unions. But Governor Christie, he's got it right. I mean, our entrepreneurs, our job creators, our risk takers, they're taking it on the nose with this Obama economy. I mean, Tom, it never ceases to amaze me how progressives are so competent at spending other people's money.
Neal, the job creators are the people who...
We're going to find all this money for these taxes and for this health care, Obamacare, health rates going up 20%, regulation costing our economy $1 trillion a year. Let's start getting rid of some of these burdens so we can raise the minimum wage.
Nice.
You can't just do one without doing the other.
Nice screed, Neal, but if you go back to 1935, and you look at every time the minimum wage has been increased, from 1935 when it was first put into law until today, every time the minimum wage has gone up, if you look at 2 and 3 year increments, because it takes a year or so for these kind of things to work their way through the economy. First of all, you don't see any drops. It's not like I'm saying 2 or 3 years because the first year falls apart. It doesn't. But over a 2 or 3 year period, what you see is what in the setup where I was talking about, over 2,000 new jobs would be created in New Jersey. Because the real job creators are people like you and me who have money in their pockets and they buy things.
2,000 jobs would be lost in New Jersey because they would be going to Florida or Texas or South Carolina. Look, the financial industry just said they're leaving New York and going to Florida, which is a right to work, no tax state. Look at what's happened to manufacturing in places like Michigan and Illinois. It's going to Texas, South Carolina, Tennessee. Governor Christie's got it right. He doesn't want to lose jobs. I don't see how you can
Neal,
say
I lived in Oregon.
Raising costs is going to increase jobs.
I lived in
and
Oregon.
If they don't go to the South, they're going to Asia.
I lived in Oregon when they raised their minimum wage by almost $2. You know what happened? It became more prosperous. The prosperity state increased.
It was probably under the Reagan administration when he was
during the Clinton
reducing cost
administration.
of business.
What happened was people said, you had more people who had more money in their pockets. They were buying more things. There were more people they could afford to go out for dinner. There were more, the waiters were making more money. The restaurants were making more. They also raised the minimum wage for waiters from $2.25 to $8.50. I mean, that's a major change. And with the result of that, prosperity.
Tom, God knows that I want people to have a better life, but you do that by creating prosperity, by having a growing economy.
Just for billionaires?
In your last segment, you said that the economy's shrinking. Well, that's right. It's because of the Obama policies it's shrinking. It's because businesses cannot afford to do business under the Obama policies. Healthcare, taxes, regulations, no energy
Actually,
policy.
one of the things that caused
businesses are
in the report that was issued by the Congressional Budget Office,
they can't create jobs.
One of the reasons why GDP shrank was because the cost of healthcare went down because of Obamacare, because of efficiencies in Obamacare.
The cost of healthcare went down. I'm just going through my renewal process for 300 employees, and my health provider says get ready for a 20% increase.
Because your private insurance company is going to screw you, Neal.
No. It's because of becoming compliant.
Hey, Stephen Hemsley's got to make his $1 billion.
And my people, these people who are struggling and working so hard, they're going to have less benefits for more cost. Tom, is that fair? Is that right?
No, it's not. And that's why I think we should have a national single-payer health care system. I think it's insane that we pay about twice as much as every other developed country in the world.
That's why we should get rid of Obamacare.
And we have a lower, average length of life and lower quality of life. But that has nothing to do with the minimum wage. The minimum wage going up. I'm not talking about raising wages. I'm not talking about raising wages on people who are making $70,000, $90,000 a year. I'm not talking about raising wages on billionaires. God knows they've done really, really well. Their wages have gone up 275%. 5% since Reagan came into office. Average working people, their wages have gone up less. Actually, if you include since the Bush recession, their wages have gone down since Reagan became president. So why not throw a bone to the dog? Why not say to the working people who are trying to make it on the minimum wage, we're going to take your minimum wage back to where it was in 1968. The economy was doing fine in 68, Neal.
Tom, already America has the highest corporate tax rates in the industrialized
Nonsense.
world. We just recently surpassed Japan. Why not go back to our risk takers and job creators and our entrepreneurs and say, hey, look, we're going to get rid of some of this regulation that's suffocating you.
Our job creators are the minimum wage workers.
And
our job creators are the minimum wage workers.
I would be the first one to say, if you were to take cost out of doing business, I would love to pay my employees more. I would love to provide them more benefits. But as I said to begin this, progressives are so good at spending other people's money. I just don't have the money to pay for this, Tom.
Okay, and I'll just, to wrap this up, and I want to say, for the record, that you and I are both entrepreneurs, that if somebody can't do business in a way that at least allows their workers to have a decent life, they've got a broken business model. And I'm guessing you would agree with me on that. I
would agree, Tom, but it's just how we get there. We all want to get to the same place. It's how we get there is different.
And we will live to debate that another time. Neal, thanks a lot.
Well, Tom, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Good talking with you.